So before we jump into PowerPoint, a quick explanation how this works. The talk is basically orbiting around the visual development of Fall Guys. And I wanted to give it a small twist and basically explaining all the things we did for Fall Guys by working my way down all the different departments of people that work for the game, aka concept art, pitch department, 3D artists, etc. So you can see each individual contribution really. And I think by that it's more detailed and more clear how we came up with this crazy successful indie game that we just put out a couple weeks ago. So let me see if this works. Just share my entire screen. Woo. I hope this works. If it doesn't work, just text me, Andy. You have my number. Okay, very nice. So this talk is about Fall Guys visual development and the wizards behind it. As everybody knows, my name is Alexander McKinney-Raphelt. I am a studio art director at Mediatonic. I have worked in the games industry for roughly 20 years almost. I've worked in all kinds of games, mobile games, AAA games, indie games, and now back to console games with Fall Guys. Mediatonic has been around for quite a while, actually. Over 15 years. We did a lot of cool games on the way. Murder by Numbers is still going strong, by the way. There's other games that unfortunately are being stopped right now, like Gears Pop, but other games that we did, like Yahtzee, for example, are still going strong. But of course, the game that is now our most successful one is good old Fall Guys. And I'm so happy and so amazed that the interest is still going strong for this game. And sometimes people reach out to me and are like, hey, this must have been just an easy sailing for you creating a game like this. And on the surface, the style might look very easy and trivial, but it's really not. There's lots of things we have to consider and lots of things that we have to go into before we release a game like this. So to get everybody in the mood, I have this short trailer, and I hope this doesn't explode now with all the live transmissions. So season 4, and yeah, humble beginnings. I'm very proud of season 4 because you can see all the advancements and all the cool new things that we're now able to do. And yeah, it was quite a journey getting to season 4. And already internally, we are working on season 5 and 6. So there's many cool new things coming. But hey, let's go back to the very beginning. Like a couple years ago, this happened. We have pitch artists that basically, like the name says, pitch ideas to management. And the ideas they pitch don't necessarily need to look exactly like the final product. I mean, it's impossible to tell, obviously. But surprisingly, this one did. And I guess what was like the special thing about this was the simplicity and the idea that like just running forward towards a goal is the easiest thing to do, really. And everybody really got the idea. So our pitch artists are pretty much very free to pick whatever tool they deem worthy for the task. This can be 3D, this can be 2D, this can be anything really that supports the idea of game design mainly, or the idea of a group of how we want to present a new game. We do a lot of those pitchings internally. There's lots of very cool game ideas that are, yeah, they're still somewhere hidden in a desk in the office. But I'm very glad we picked Fall Guys, actually, and made this a reality. So the idea from the very beginning was clear that we wanted to have very clumsy characters making it to the end of a very complicated parkour. And we wanted those characters to look extremely non-athletic, but still adorable. So we were trying to coming up with shapes and silhouettes that still had some strong identification, and people would be able to identify the characters in the crowd, but at the same time not suggesting, okay, this character is going to be able to run really fast or jump really high. We wanted them to look kind of chubby, kind of non-athletic on purpose. And another idea that was pretty clear from the very beginning, we wanted to have a shape that would enable our designers to come up with new costumes, with slight changes to the actual texture. At this very early phase, each Fall Guy was an individual character. Each Fall Guy looked like this from the very beginning. We didn't still have the idea of putting on costumes to our beans. But still, this is already surprisingly close to what we have in the final game. And again, in games production, everything can change quite drastically. So seeing something like this surprises me as well. And maybe it was a good sign to have something that resonated so strongly with everybody that only minor changes were required. And of course, at the very beginning, the strongest group and the most important group is the group of concept artists. I'm very happy that our team and the team I'm privileged to work with is such a diverse and such an intelligent and creative group. They picked up the initial ideas from the pitching group so gracefully, and basically what you can see in those very, very early ideas, this is probably one of the earliest ideas we had for Fall Guys from the concept art team. Again, didn't change that much. The central elements is the chubby shape of the bean plus the faceplate, and by just focusing the attention on the eyes and not having like a mouth or a nose, made it very easy for us to just put more attention on costumes and a more pantomime expressions instead of going with crazy facial animations. At this early phase, mainly we work in 2D programs like Photoshop. It can be even iPad painting programs, like in this case, whatever floats the boat, really. This is just about communicating ideas. It's communicating different versions of what could work as a game, and this is not meant to be final production quality. Concept artists also work very early with our team of animators, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what happens if you put different body shapes into the playfield? How would interactive animations look like? Because, and I'm going to talk about this a bit later, our animation system is basically twofold. It's physics-based, where our characters react to the environment and to other impulses. But at the same time, we also have hand-drawn animations, where we have dance animations, jump animations, all that's required within a game, and we have to blend them in a very careful way. And we also have to make sure that when we have certain proportions of the character, we can still use costumes and things to attach without having crazy intersections or stuff that makes the character look weird. Like I said initially, at the beginning, we thought we were just going to have different Fall Guys, and the different Fall Guys would always look like this. But somehow this popped up one day, and as you can see, this was just a quick idea. What if? And this is the magic of concept art. It's not about creating perfect drawings and beautiful rendered images, which are also nice and I appreciate, but this is the actual spark of creativity. Having quick drawings that offer or open a new gate saying, what if? And in this case, we decided to come up with the idea of, hey, what happens if we put on silly costumes in our Fall Guys? And this is what really happened. At the end, we have hundreds of costumes by now. Actually, they're releasing around 30 costumes every season. There's millions and millions of combinations players can do with interchanging the upper and lower body part of the costume. But this was part of the initial roster, and we already have a very sophisticated character art Bible by now, where we identify things that we can do with the characters. What's the max costume size? What is things that we can do in engine? Things that are impossible to do as of now still. But even though this lineup was very early, this is pretty much what we can see in the game right now. And I'm very happy we picked this up, because this enriches the game experience so much. And as you can see, this, again, is being done in Photoshop directly. And as you can see in the later parts of the presentation, we try to stick as closely as we can to the concepts. Of course, the concepts don't only limit themselves to costumes. We are also thinking about levels and about the things that we want to have in the level. Of course, Fall Guys is a game without gore or violence, but there's still a lot of like slapstick humor. And when we're still able to be in an office, we have those mobile walls where we can print and attach lots of images. Basically, the Fall Guys section of the office had those images of all sorts of crazy contraptions and stuff that would go on within the levels. We also had walls just filled with inspiration, like the original Takeshi's Castle TV show, for example, old games from the 90s and 80s, all sorts of things that we took as inspiration and just made it our own. But as you can see here, again, concept art, in my opinion, is more about transporting and communicating an idea. I'm not pressed to have very clean, very beautiful images. This is not the point. As you can see, concepts that we do in a very quick fashion become something that's more fleshed out and rendered. I said initially that we mainly use 2D tools like Photoshop or other 2D tools that are just easy and quickly to do stuff in. But at the end, I encourage our concept artists to also use very simple 3D tools as kind of like an underpainting or an help when it comes to perspective drawings, for example, because by that, we can always make sure that we hit the right proportions, that we hit the right angles, and that we can make sure that it looks more or less like the initial concept idea that we had later on in the game. Once we know what elements we want to have and we know what colors to use, we can use those, the 3D foundations, so to say, to create levels and to create ideas for levels. And I gotta say, this, of course, is just concept art's work. This is a work that represents a very close connection with game design in general. We have a lot of sessions and a lot of meetings with the game design folks to come up with ideas, to evaluate ideas, and to very quickly assess what is actually fun to play and what's maybe kind of boring. And that's why our levels go through a lot of iterations, a lot of recycling ideas, a lot of coming up with things that are new and exciting to players. And once we know the most important elements that we have in the game, then we can slowly transition and give all those ideas to our 3D artists. And the aim here is to create a mood and something that looks very close to the game. Mind you, this is not in-game. This is just for illustration purposes. but you can tell that it looks very close to the actual game experience and very close to what you actually can do in a game. Mind you that back in the days, we still had the idea of having around 100 players in the same level. This looks very cute on concept art or even 3D renders, but in the flesh, it was very hard to control a battlefield with over 100 characters. It was just too much noise, and it was just too much bumping around, so we cut it down to 60. But as you can see, we have important elements like the rotating hammers, the base where you can drop the eggs, the characters with the tails. Everything's in here already, just not as detailed and just not exactly as you can see it in the game, because this was still early beginnings. Those renders were made to present to management and to tell them, hey, listen, this is more or less a mood painting. This is going to be the idea of how it's going to look like. And once we have the sign off of like, okay, we love the mood, we love the visual energy, then we can jump into like the actual functionality. The levels that we do and the levels that we plan to put out in the actual game engine are firstly being done in this very, very simple fashion. And usually I would call them gray boxes, but they're not really gray. And the purpose is just to test for functionality and to see if the course is actually fair, if it's fun to play, if there's any way to exploit the game by doing certain things. Of course, players will always find cool things and tricks you can do, and maybe also even exploiting levels. But basically, this is the shape and this is the look of how levels feel when we test them. Because 3D artists have to make sure that we have all the right proportions, that we have all the perfect sizes for everything, really, so we can then put this in the engine and run tests. And those tests firstly run within all the people that work in the studio. And it's lovely that we're now so many people and we can always run tests with up to 300 plus people. But basically, it doesn't look as shiny and as beautiful as the actual game, but that's okay. This is purely for testing purposes, and 3D level artists have to make sure that those proportions are just right in accordance with game design, and just to make sure that we can use this and greenlight this so we can make it beautiful in the last step. Once we greenlight the idea of having levels that work, that are fun to play, we can actually make them pretty. And I gotta be very honest with you. We had a certain vibe at the beginning that we wanted to use fresh, beautiful colors. As a matter of fact, all the colors that we identified as being Fall Guys-y, so to say, we gave them like candy names or like sugary treats names. Like it was, instead of yellow, it was vanilla. And instead of green, it was mint chip. So we tried to keep it as sweet and cheesy as possible, and it worked, I gotta say, because of that, we have this very nice color palette of being very pastel-y colors, very bright colors that are pleasing to the eye and give Fall Guys this very unique Candy Town flavor. And now that we knew that our levels would look sweet and delightful, we had to adapt our costumes to the same style as well. We don't have any gory costumes with like huge weapons or blood dripping from your battle axe or whatever. Everything looks kind of like as if they were wearing vinyl costumes. Every season, of course, has its own personal flavor, but at the end, we want people to look at those costumes as what they are, as costumes, really. So the Fall Guys are not really a bag of chips.
My apologies.
Whoops.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, Siri wants to play Fall Guys as well. I'm sorry. At the end, this works in our favor because I play Fall Guys every day. And it's crazy the combinations of costumes I see. It's crazy the love I see from the community, like people producing actual Fall Guys costumes. This is great. This is something I didn't see coming at all. And once we decided for the style and all the beautiful things that we can do, we also have, or I want to give credit to some special group of people, the technical artists. And I want to mention those, and unfortunately, this is like the only image I have. technical artists are the people that enable us and other artists to come up with tools that make our life easier to, for example, insert certain mechanisms and certain tools into the engine, so we can have this, for example, this vinyl shader effect, that we can have costumes that are interchangeable, that we can have a certain bounciness to the characters. Those are all things that we don't find in an engine when we get it, basically. This is all stuff that we have to code, but it needs to be done by a person that also has an artistic eye. That's why, in my opinion, technical artists are extremely rare to find wonderful unicorns. But the amount of technical artwork that went into Fall Guys is crazy. And it's sometimes not that quickly visible to the eye, but especially behind the curtains, it makes our life so much easier, because we can run tools and we can do things that are impossible to do when we get an engine just like that. And yeah, huge kudos and respects to our technical artists here. So I mentioned it from the very beginning. What makes Fall Guys so special is partly because of the animations. We have emotes, we have very cute basic animations, running cycles, and we put a lot of thought on what type of animations we actually want to do by hand. We wanted to support the actual clumsiness and chubbiness of the characters. How would they react when there was like this pile of beans trying to climb the wall, for example, falling down an obstacle, getting up. A lot of thoughts and a lot of actual acting from the animators. Our animators are not chubby, but still it worked. Was required to come up with a feel and a look of a typical Fall Guy. And also having in mind that some costumes might become bigger, and how would the animations react with those costumes. And at the same time, making sure that we have a physics-based animation system in place that would give our characters a livelihood and a charm without having to animate everything by hand. And as you can see, we went through a lot of iterations of things that we want to do, the correct timing. How would the vinyl look, feel when we have crazy animations? And as you can see on the lower left side, when we still had the idea of Fall Guys just being individual characters, we quickly found that if we go this route, we will have characters that might become very big or might look too special. And at the end of the day, yes, each Fall Guys is individually made and has a close connection to the actual player. But we didn't want to have characters that were so special that everybody wants to have the unicorn dragon just because it's a bit bigger or has the golden horn. Another aspect why we went for the costume path. This is a slide that explains how we have physics-based animations. We work with a so-called ragdoll system. This ragdoll system calculates the impact of forces on the poor guy down there. The more stuff you add, the higher the accuracy, the harder it goes on our servers or your machine. So this job not only requires having a keen sense of what looks good and what is necessary, but also balancing how much of the actual CPU power and processing power do we want to sacrifice for physics-based real-time animation. And this might look trivial, but I'm an old games bear, and I gotta say, times before physics-based animations or ragdoll systems were hard, man, because you had to come up with every possible scenario and trying to come up with ideas that looked somehow cool and believable. And this makes our lives so much easier. And I'm very happy to live in a world where we have access to this kind of software and solutions. So the unsung heroes of every game really are UI artists and also UX designers. And I make this separation because a while ago we decided to split UI artists and UX designers from each other because we were running into issues. So basically, in a nutshell, a UI artists make sure that all the elements that we see in the game in order to control the game properly are done in a pleasant way, look aligned to the overall game style, are easy to use and easily identifiable. Whereas an UX designer works more closely with game design and makes sure that the actual flow, the actual position of the buttons, the logic behind the user interface makes sense. But this doesn't require any sorts of graphics. This can be done in a very abstract, more dry way, but both need this distance from each other to come up with things that make sense, and so they don't step on each other's foot. And I think for Fall Guys, the biggest challenge is not only to have a game that looks like adorable and cute, but also works on different platforms. And as you can see, it doesn't. This is not limited to what we see in the game. And this is also no secret. Good UI art and good UX design helps us to generate more money because we make it easier for people to find the shop, to buy stuff, to actually see it on the character, and to do this on every platform we plan to release Fall Guys on. And it's not limited to just putting fancy buttons that give us money. When we do UX design, it's a lot of research, and it's a lot of user testing, and it's back in pre-COVID days, actually inviting people over to play prototypes and to tell us what they liked, what they didn't like, filming people, what buttons they press, and on what time, under what circumstances. So a lot of magic happens without people even realizing. Now with the whole pandemic going on, it's a bit more difficult, but we're still managing. And yeah, for all the future seasons, our great user interface artists and UX designers are still putting hard work to make this experience as easy to play for you as possible. I think this is also important to mention. It's not only research and psychology, but it's also partly also production, really, and coming up with relations how a user journey can look like and how we can enhance the overall experience by a smart user experience design. Yeah, and then there's this annoying dude like myself. Basically, I tell people to make things bigger all day. I wish it was that easy. By now, compared to the times where we released Fall Guys, my team has quintupled in size, which is crazy. There's lots and lots of artists. I work with a very talented, very creative group of lead artists that help me to manage the team. And it's not about what I put here in this meme, basically. It's not about telling people where to put what and what color and what size. It's more about trusting people. I hire people because they're better at painting and rendering than I am. And I need to trust those people. And trust is a very important aspect in creating games, because everybody has to have a high-level vision of how the game should look like, but also at the same time having a very keen eye to detail, because everything needs to look nice. Everything needs to look perfect when it comes into the game, and I can't control everything. So I don't expect every lead artist to control every pixel either. It comes down to managing the team, to making sure everybody feels nourished, everybody feels a sense of purpose. And it's important to also defend artistic ideas in front of other people that might not have the same insights or same detail eye onto something like us artists do. Another big part of an art director job or lead artist job is to come up with the art Bibles I mentioned initially, basically documents that explain what is the purpose, how should a level always look like, what is the visual intent, and how can we get there. So it requires a lot of writing. It requires a lot of having the ability to have a long distance, high level vision, because Fall Guys is now a game that we plan running for many, many years. And those documents need to be living documents, and they need to offer a projection into the future so artists know what's next, what's the next chapter, and what needs to be done. The smallest group, but still very important for the magic of Fall Guys, is special effect artists. We try to keep our special effects rather in the background because we realize there's already so much going on. But still, I believe VFX or special effects is the literal cherry on top of the computer game cake. And if you turn off special effects, the game really looks boring and very flat. So if you pay attention, there's actually a lot of special effects going on, not only visually, but also on the sound field. Sorry, this was too quick. And what I can say is that the more we advance with the seasons, the more special effects we have. And I encourage everybody to just put some special attention on the special effects we have in Fall Guys. And now that we have a game, this all goes to marketing art. We are now growing a bigger marketing art department as well. To just offer all our partners all the cool marketing artwork, all the high glossy, super rendered scenes. Sometimes I kidnap concept artists or illustrators to come up with a very nice, very high polished imagery that we can just display anywhere where it's needed. From like actual physical stands to posters to announcements. It's a lot of stuff those guys do. Yeah, and lastly, I got to say I'm amazed by the creativity of everybody that plays Fall Guys. Really, there's people like tattooing stuff, coming up with a 2D pixel version of it actually runs of Fall Guys, anatomy models that are based on internal concept art, movie posters. We have weekly reports of stuff fans do. I love every single piece of those crazy good artworks. And this is more creativity and more inspiration I could ever ask for future seasons. So thanks everybody that contributes and shares the love and inspiration with us. And that's it. I only ran over 3 minutes. Thank you so much for listening to this. And let me just jump back to the questions.
Thank you so much for that. That was excellent. I'd forgotten about that skeleton one.
It's still around.
Yeah. So we do have quite a few questions that have come in through that. There's quite a few that are just about Fall Guys in general. So I'm going to try and steer it more towards the ones that are relevant to the work that you do. But first off, thank you very much for that. It was a really good insight into sort of the development behind Fall Guys.
Thank you.
A lot of interesting stuff going on there. So I'm just going to go through the questions. So first up, Daniel Keeley asks, in such a colourful game, how challenging was it to minimise visual noise and to ensure players wearing all sorts of costumes fit in with the aesthetic and surroundings of the game?
Yeah, good question. Like I said, first step was to basically reduce the amount of players that we had inside the game or an actual level, because we realized once we played it internally in our gray box levels, it was fun. But once we added textures and we added, like, I don't know, glossy effects, specular, whatever, motion blur, it became pretty clear, oh, wow, this is just pixel noise all over the place. So there's like two visual directions that we can always see. We try to limit the color palette of the actual background or the actual level to maybe 2 or 3 main components or main color tones or harmonics, whereas the characters can be anything really. And by that, we can make sure at least the characters will always be more colorful and like not fitting into the environment, because there's like no harmony between them on purpose. And by that, we can make sure, okay, there's going to be a certain visual separation. So with all the seasons so far and with all the future seasons, you can always identify a certain color harmonics. For example, and the winter season was more about those very pastel colors, light blue, white, yellow. Now season 4 has those very strong black tones, purple, also a bit of a high pitch red here and there, but that's it. And we try to stick within those limits and just making the separation by color tones.
Thank you for that. Next up, we've got time for a couple more. Renato Sivadelic says, could you describe to us your regular work day? What tools do you use to keep track of velocity production output?
Okay. So, what can I say without revealing too many juicy secrets? So, of course, we work with Perforce, which is a version control software. That means it makes sure that from an artistic standpoint, everybody always works on the newest version of an asset, of a painting, or whatever it's required. We work with Azure, which is a very big producing, controlling suite, basically. It calculates velocity of everybody automatically. But we also, when we do smaller plannings for smaller groups, we actually use Tom's Planner as well, which is a very cute, very easy to use tool for quick planning. And because sometimes those very big suits are interesting to have a bigger picture of what's going on, especially now that we're doing the game for all platforms in existence. But since we want to give everybody a sense of autonomy and knowing what's going on, we also allow having those smaller tools for smaller packages. But at the end, we always try to come back into this bigger suit to have an overview of what everybody's doing, really. Because, yeah, like I said, we're now quintuple in size. When I released the game, we were like around 29 people, and it's I don't know, it's now over 160. So it's crazy.
This is quite a good one. Glenn Pierce asks, let me just close that one. When looking for new artists, do you look for portfolios specifically with the Fall Guys style or general stylized art?
It's a good question. I would say general stylized art is fine, because like I think that the Fall Guys style is very specific. Everything has like this vinyl, high glossy flavor to it, and I don't think there's artists out there that have a portfolio that's based on that. I would be very surprised. So in the widest sense, from a portfolio perspective, I would be looking for someone who is not afraid and adding humor to its stuff. Somebody who's not afraid diving into stylized stuff in general, because oftentimes I feel that 3D artists think, oh, okay, it's stylized, it's cheap quality. And that's actually not the case. The actual costumes and the animations and what we can do with Fall Guys is very sophisticated and very challenging. And just by adding more noise or more crazy details, this doesn't make your model of a higher fidelity whatsoever. So just somebody who's not afraid of stylized stuff, somebody who loves, I don't know, Pixar stuff, Zelda Breath of the Wild, simple things that makes it easier to express colorful ideas, that would be something I'd be looking for.
Last one, quickly, also from Renato, but a really interesting question. How much influence do artists have on the design of the game? And on the other side, how much influence do designers have on your art outside of the design requirements?
That's a good one. So basically, like I said in the presentation, I hire experts so I can trust them. So we trust our game designers to come up with really exciting levels or really exciting things that should happen within a level. But on the other side, they trust us with bouncing back and coming up with visual concepts that match their ideas somehow. But we don't have this clash of cultures where game designers dictate to us how certain things should look like. And on the other side, we don't tell them how game design should work. There's always a dialogue, of course. There's always inspiration coming back and forth. But the actual field of expertise, how a level looks like, and the things that we can do should come from game design, and mainly does. And the things that are visible in a level come from us, and we offer solutions and pitch ideas regularly. So I guess that the secret is that we have so many presentations and pitches of stuff that's going on that there's like no big surprise. We never have this moment, okay, and this is the visual master solution for season 4, whatever. This was a process, and everybody's always aligned on what's going to happen very soon, basically. But this is the way how it should work, in my opinion. Every expert should just do what they know best.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it was an excellent talk and really good answers to the questions as well.
Very nice. That's super cool. I mean, it's so weird. I see a number like 355, but I only see you. So can't wait to have this in real life one day.
But yeah, thank you so much.